Who are the worst people we need to kick out of society? Let's find out. Starting with number 6, the crime-loving twins. Consuela Jones, aka Sway Bentley, from Mobile, Alabama, one half of the TikTok famous duo Famous Twins, got herself out of jail after facing a laundry list of charges. She was busted with some of the sticky icky green stuff, contraband paraphernalia, a firearm, and apparently she also had a fight with her sister. But let's back up. These twins, Consuela and Allie, they're big shots on social media like TikTok royalty with 1 million followers and a load of fans on Instagram and Facebook. They're known for their songs, dances, and whatever else gets views. It's all very classy, we're sure. In one of their infamous incidents, Consuela got into a full-on brawl with her sister Allie, and that landed her in the slammer. Then Consuela got out and they went back to their usual antics, posting stuff like nothing happened, even putting up a TikTok with Consuela's mugshot. But wait, there's more! These two troublemakers didn't stop there. They got into even hotter water when Consuela was nabbed again, this time at a Walmart for a fight. Her sister Allie decided to join the party too, throwing hands at the cops and making a run for it. Smart move, Allie. And just when you thought they couldn't outdo themselves, they go and discharge their firearms in a park. These two brain scientists live stream themselves busting caps like it's a scene out of a movie about people who enjoy busting caps at places that they really shouldn't be busting caps. They actually managed to injure 2 people, including a teenage girl. We know, you're impressed too. The police chief wasn't impressed with their cap busting though. He called them out for trying to get attention on social media with their idiotic activities. Honestly, it's like these twins were trying to one-up each other in the dumbest possible way. So what's the end game for these TikTok sensations turned troublemakers? Well, it looks like they're headed for more trouble and less TikTok fame. Or maybe the other way around, given how we have a habit of making stupid people famous. Number 5, preying on seniors. Elijah Gay, a Brooklyn resident, embarked on a crime spree targeting senior citizens in New York City, stealing MacBooks, credit cards, and even a 90-year-old woman's hearing aids. Gay was apprehended after his thefts and faces multiple charges, including robbery and grand larceny. Gay's MO involves preying on vulnerable individuals in various subway stations across the city. In one incident, he grabbed the 90-year-old woman's purse containing her credit cards and $6,000 worth of hearing aids. Another victim, Ellie Collin, recounted her experience of being robbed on a subway station stairway during rush hour. Collin reported the incident to the police, but didn't think the police would ever do anything about it because of the amount of crime happening in New York at any moment. NYPD officers, including Sergeant Juan Hernandez and Officer Jasmine Roman, diligently pursued Gay, recognizing him from photographs and observing him jump a turnstile. They promptly arrested him, prompting Collin to express her gratitude by writing a letter to the officers. Gay faces 5 felony charges and was held on $10,000 bail. Despite the challenges law enforcement faces, Collin talked about the importance of appreciating their efforts, acknowledging the risks they undertake to protect the community. You have to wonder what this dude's face was like when he realized he just stole a bunch of hearing aids from an old lady. Please, put this guy in a landfill and forget about him. Number 4, pretend concerts. Ben Anderson, a social media influencer who once graced the screens of Good Morning Britain, got himself in trouble for allegedly scamming investors out of a cool £8 million. Alongside his wife Sophie, they supposedly lured folks into investing in concerts featuring big names like Snoop Dogg and Beyonce, promising a high-flying lifestyle in return. But it turns out they didn't organize a single gig. Instead, they just cooked up a bunch of phony documents, including fake invoices and bank statements to keep the charade alive. All the while, they were living it up, flying first class to Dubai and splurging on luxury accommodations. Anderson's lawyer tried to spin a tale about good intentions gone awry, blaming pandemic lockdowns and personal tragedy for the mess. But the claimants weren't buying it, labeling the Andersons as nothing more than common grifters. Adding fuel to the fire, Ben Anderson had previously stirred up controversy earlier with a TikTok egg challenge. because apparently when someone does something dumb and calls it a challenge, then other people will do the same dumb thing. The egg challenge ends up with unsuspecting kids having an egg cracked on their heads, and we all know how funny it is when people prank their toddlers. That's to say, it didn't help Anderson's popularity. In the end, the Anderson scheme was cracked wide open, and now they're facing the music in court. Looks like their days of living the high life might be coming to a swift and not so glamorous end. Hey, maybe the Andersons could collab with that guy who did the Fire Festival and they disappoint everyone. Number 3, something's afoot. Joseph Regan, an amateur soccer player from the UK, pulled off a shady move by tricking 2 women he met on dating sites into setting up gambling accounts and then swiped more than £1,500 from them. Regan's scheme involved using his victims' card details to open accounts with Bet365 and then siphoning money from their bank accounts to fuel his own gambling habits. He even went as far as threatening one victim, a teacher, with false accusations of an inappropriate relationship if she didn't comply. During his sentencing hearing in court, it was revealed that Regan had targeted the women between December of 2021 and February of 2022. His first victim, a teacher, managed to reclaim £350 of the £1,420 he stole from her, while the second victim, a nurse, lost £210, which isn't a ton, but it still sucks to have it stolen. The teacher described Regan as initially charming and attentive, but his true colors emerged when he pressured her into letting him use her card to open a Bet365 account. Despite her reservations, she fell for his manipulative tactics, only to realize later that she had been tricked. Similarly, the nurse's encounter with Regan turned sour when she refused to open a betting account for him. His demeanor quickly changed, becoming rude and aggressive, leaving her feeling violated and panicked as money began disappearing from her bank account. Both victims independently reported the incidents to police and action fraud, leading to Regan's arrest. Despite initially denying the charges and claiming permission to use the victim's money, Regan eventually pleaded guilty to 2 counts of theft. In court, Regan's defense talked about his shame and struggle with gambling, portraying him as remorseful and on a path to recovery. And even though soccer players are known to be fantastic actors, the judge saw through Regan's show, pointing out the calculated nature of his crimes and the impact on the victims. As punishment, Regan received a suspended 6-month prison sentence, along with a rehabilitation requirement, unpaid work, and hefty compensation to his victims. Well, at least he got to practice those soccer acting skills in court, so that was exciting, right? Number 2, stealing savings. UK mother Cheryl Linz, 47, was sentenced for a pretty low-down act. She straight up stole £15,000 from her severely autistic son's savings, money that was originally intended for his therapy and vacations. She spent it lavishly on herself, including splurges on taxis and shopping sprees, according to court proceedings. In court, Linz pleaded guilty to the charge of fraud. The judge, letting her know what he thought, handed her a suspended 20-month prison term, calling her actions despicable, which sounds pretty accurate. Linz had assumed control of her son's finances, money that was saved for him by a foster carer before he moved into assisted living at the age of 18. Over the course of roughly 3 years, she systematically withdrew between £14,000 and £15,000 from his account. Her scheme only came to light when a vigilant social worker became suspicious of her extravagant spending habits and alerted the authorities. Lynn's defense counsel's argument was basically that she's someone with limited intelligence and a troubled past, which is pretty much not a good situation when your attorney's only defense for you is that you're stupid and you did a lot of stupid things in the past. The judge didn't care though. He probably deals with a lot of stupid people doing a lot of stupid things, and admonished her for her actions, pointing at the despicable nature of preying on her own son's vulnerability for personal gain. While we really shouldn't be shocked by much at this point, the length some people will go to satisfy their own selfish desires, even at the expense of their own family, is still shocking, which is good, because we should never just be desensitized to the horrible things people do to one another. Hopefully, Linz thinks about what she did to her own son. She has many problems, so she said she can't pay him back, but we hope she attempts to do at least something to make it right. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay tuned right here for our past release to find out how the guy she stole from figured out it was her. Number 1, the trust fund kid. Ryan James Crawford, a Miami man, got slapped with over 5 years in prison for pulling off a sneaky crypto and stock investment scam, netting almost a cool million in the process. The guy, also known as Brody, he looks like a Brody, doesn't he? Tricked people into thinking they were investing in the stock market and his flashy crypto, Cheetah Coin. As it turns out, he was just living large on other people's dime, renting swanky cars and hitting up the casino. This guy was all about that high roller life, except he was making bread with other people's dough. Crawford was just talk, though. He flaunted his fake success in videos, boasting about taking over the world while promoting his fake crypto. But behind the scenes, it was all smoke and mirrors. From June 2020 to March 2022, he conned nearly $1 million out of unsuspecting investors, promising low risk and high rewards while living it up with luxury rentals and casino nights. The jig was up when NBC6 investigators sniffed around, poking holes in Crawford's scheme. After digging into the case, Miami-Dade police got in on the action, teaming up with state and federal agencies to put the cuffs on Crawford in Colorado. Seems like his crypto empire wasn't as impenetrable as he thought. And let's not forget about the victims. These poor souls lost big time, with one dude ending up living out of his car. Not cool, Brody, man. Not cool. Now, Crawford's facing the music, with over 5 years behind bars and nearly $1 million in restitution. Maybe he'll learn a thing or two about real investments in the big house. Remember to be very cautious about taking financial advice from those who come from inherited wealth. Dealing with trust fund kids is annoying enough as it is, but unless they've actually built wealth themselves, probably talk to someone else. Crimes are always more fun when the criminals aren't the brightest bulbs in the pack. Let's buckle up for this one and start with number 6. Don't mind if I do. Mary Ellis Valencia Martinez stole about $32,000 worth of jewels from a man she visited in Miami. Martinez flew to meet the man after they had spoken online for about 2 months. Martinez first noticed the man's jewels when he put 2 diamond rings and a diamond bracelet in a clear plastic bag as they were parking his car. Apparently, there was a sign suggesting that people shouldn't leave their valuables in their car, so, of course, he couldn't be leaving diamond rings and diamond bracelets, you know? Especially if he wasn't planning on wearing them. And it's not like he could just leave them at home or something. Doesn't everyone just drive around with thousands of dollars in jewelry they're not wearing? Anyway, during the date, Martinez asked the guy if she could wear the jewelry and wanted to know how much it was worth and how much it would sell for, because questions like that aren't suspicious at all. The guy didn't tell her any details concerning the price, but allowed her to wear the jewelry anyway. The two of them went to a nightclub and returned home where Martinez gave it all back. The guy took the rings and the bracelet and placed them in a box on the shelf in his room. Early the next morning, Martinez woke the guy up and asked him to take her back to the airport, which he did. Before leaving the hotel, he saw the box on the shelf and assumed the jewels were still in it. Unbeknownst to him, Martinez had done a little creative housekeeping, and by creative housekeeping we mean she stole the jewels. A few days later, the guy saw her using the jewels to record videos on TikTok. It must have took him a few days to notice his diamonds were stolen. He texted her through WhatsApp and asked her to send them back. Martinez refused and told him that she would send them back whenever she returned to Miami. Her excuse was that it was too expensive to send them back, which is a pretty good excuse if you're 5 years old. However, Martinez didn't return to Miami at the time she promised she would. But when she did return, she was arrested. The guy reported her to authorities, so they had been on the lookout. Once she flew into Fort Lauderdale, her goose was cooked. Unfortunately, we don't know if this arrest will result in the victim getting his jewelry back. Maybe don't bring expensive jewelry you're not wearing on your next date, huh? Number 5, double check the insurance. Uloma Curry Walker hired teenagers to bump off her husband because she wanted to benefit from his life insurance. She was married to Fire Department Lieutenant William Walker for just 4 months. It must have been bliss, since she was already planning to end the marriage by becoming a widow and inheriting everything he had. Uloma was thousands of dollars in debt and was nearing financial ruin. William didn't know about this debt, and he also didn't know that Uloma wasn't actually suffering from the stage 4 breast cancer she'd claimed to have, but he was figuring it out. So what did our enterprising future widow-in-chief do to get her husband bumped off? She did what any reasonable person would have done. She spoke to her 17-year-old daughter. Her daughter then told her 20-year-old boyfriend, Chad Paget, about it. Paget told Uloma that he could get the job done, but he needed some payment. She decided to pay him $1,000 up front and said she would pay him the rest after the job was completed. However, the 20-year-old Paget surprisingly wasn't exactly accomplished at what he was hired to do, so he decided to farm the job out to another guy named Chris Hine. Hine initially accepted the job, but then brought in yet another co-conspirator, Ryan Doherty. This co-conspirator seemed to be the most willing to do the job, and he only asked for a meager fee of $800. The reason Uloma hired the boys to do the job was because she thought nobody would think she did it, because who in their right mind would think she'd hire a bunch of actual kids to go after her husband? In any case, the deed was eventually done. Doherty fatally ambushed William as he went out to get his fake cancer-having wife fast food. Uloma, who must have a huge hole in the place where her conscience lives, rode with William in the ambulance as he was transported to the hospital. Uloma's big plan was to get William's life insurance benefits, but had overlooked a tiny detail. She wasn't the beneficiary of the life insurance. Instead, William's ex-wife was the beneficiary. For some reason, William hadn't gotten around to changing the name on the benefits from his ex-wife to his new wife, probably because he wasn't expecting his new wife to plan his demise. Not only did Uloma not get the life insurance money, but she also got arrested by the police. The police offered plea deals to Uloma's co-conspirators, and they took it. Even if her daughter testified against her at trial, in return for the plea deals, Hine, Paget, and Doherty all got reduced life sentences. Uloma, on the other hand, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But she's single, right? What a catch. Number 4. Caught on camera. Haley Barlow reported to her insurance company that her car had been stolen. But what she left out of the report was that she was the one who towed it away and then set it on fire. Barlow told the police that she'd woken up one morning and discovered that her car keys had been stolen and her car was nowhere to be found. She then went on to make a $2,000 claim for the apparent theft. But things quickly turned into a junkyard fire for Barlow. The police found the car and discovered that it had been set alight. Then they found out that the burnt car didn't have an engine. They returned to Barlow, who insisted that the car was in its proper working condition before it was stolen. Honestly, promise. Unfortunately for her, that claim wasn't enough to keep those pesky coppers from snooping around, sticking their noses in everyone's business. The police eventually found CCTV footage that showed the car being towed by a tow truck with Barlow sitting right inside it. This was all the evidence needed to prove that our little victim was actually an arsonist fraudster. Further investigations revealed that Barlow had paid the driver of the tow truck about 20 pounds. After the car was towed to another location, she then used a can of butane gas to set the vehicle on fire. Barlow was eventually arrested and charged. She pleaded guilty to fraud and claimed that she had carried out the scam because of debts and the amount of money and repairs the car was costing her. Therefore, she saw setting the car on fire and getting insurance funds for it as her only option. Police said that the actions of people like Barlow weren't only criminal, but also constituted a wildfire risk. The fire from her vehicle had caught the dry undergrowth on the road, and the fire had spread a considerable distance away from the car. Thankfully, it went out before it had the chance to spread to the farms and fields nearby. You were driving a VW, Haley. You probably could have just waited a few more days and it would have caught fire on its own. Number 3. Not seeing the problem. A supposedly blind Italian man scammed the government of thousands of euros in benefits before he was caught window shopping and driving. Our lovable fake blind man got about 144,000 euros over 13 years from the Italian government with a fake sob story. He claimed that he became blind in 2008 due to a congenital problem. Unfortunately for our blind guy, and perhaps fortunately for the Italian government, he just couldn't keep this lie going for long. 10 years after he declared blindness, he decided to apply for a driver's license. This alerted the police, who decided to check in on him. They don't typically like blind people driving because it's dangerous or whatever. So either he'd suddenly gotten cured of his blindness because the thoughts and prayers finally worked, or he was just a careless liar. As it turned out, he was just a careless liar, even though our money was on the thoughts and prayers working. The police staked out his apartment and saw him riding a scooter. They also saw him doing things that blind people generally find time to do, such as driving a car, looking at your phone while driving, looking at shop windows, and teaching a child how to ride a bike. Incidentally, the blind man wasn't unknown to the police. He had only recently received a jail sentence of nearly 15 years for being part of a group that staged fake traffic accidents for insurance payouts, which again is the sort of thing you would expect the blind man to do. Lastly, the police discovered that the man was already financially stable as he owned a garage. Despite that, he still collected a basic income that the authorities only give its poorest citizens. We can't really hate on a guy pretending to be blind. We pretend to be deaf all the time. Please stop playing with the dinosaur bones. This is a museum. What? Number 2. Double dipping. Marina Golfo tricked her bosses at the City Department of Education into giving her 3 months of sick leave while she served time in prison for defrauding taxpayers and students. While she was in prison, Marina was paid over $24,000 by the Department of Education. Her journey to conviction and imprisonment began when she defrauded taxpayers of over $150,000 through a program that served developmentally challenged children. For 3 years, Marina submitted forged treatment notes and invoices to the program claiming payment for over 1,500 therapy sessions she never actually provided. But the program eventually found out what Marina was doing, and she was arrested and sentenced to 3 months in prison. She was also asked to pay restitution for all the money she'd collected from the program. But our scammer wasn't about to go gently into that good night. She had one more trick up her sleeve. Once in prison, Marina sent a letter to the Department of Education asking for paid sick leave. She included a doctor's note in her request claiming that she was too sick to come to work and should remain at home. After that, she submitted requests to prison and court officials asking for compassionate release before her time in prison was served. Her reason was the COVID-19 pandemic and her elderly parents needed a caretaker. The court refused and said her arguments didn't hold up. At the same time, Marina's requested time for sick paid leave was coming to an end. So she did the smart thing and requested more sick leave, and the department approved the request. They had no idea that Marina was a jailbird and not a sick bird. And it gets even better. The Department of Education initially knew of Marina's arrest. The arrest was widely reported, and she had even been reassigned from her primary position in the department in anticipation of her sentencing. When Marina was eventually sentenced, she simply informed no one, and no one bothered to check. The Human Resources Division of the department had no idea that Marina was requesting sick leave from jail, so they granted it. But this gig couldn't go on for long. After Marina served her time in prison, someone who wasn't minding their own business informed the department about her stint in prison, and she was eventually fired. According to Marina, she had done absolutely nothing wrong. She claimed that while in prison, she suffered complications from shingles, so she would have been unable to go to work even if she hadn't been in prison. So her request for sick leave was valid since she wouldn't have been able to go to work anyway. What a coincidence! However, it doesn't seem like Marina will get away with her scam, as the Department of Education has requested a refund of all the monies it paid out. She has also been banned from doing any further work for the department. Looks like Marina taught her last lesson. Just because you're accurate doesn't mean you're right. Number 1. Grandma and the BBL. Tiffany Acuna stands accused of using the credit card of an Alzheimer's patient to pay for her cosmetic surgery. When the theft occurred, Tiffany worked as a certified nursing assistant and was tending to an 88-year-old. The fraud itself was simple. Tiffany merely took the credit card information of her patient and used it to purchase a Brazilian butt lift, J-plasma, and arm lipo procedures. The husband of the victim in this case contacted the fraud department of his bank when he received a bill for over $7,000 in his wife's name. The department told him that the bill was for cosmetic surgery. He didn't believe his 88-year-old wife would be getting a Brazilian butt lift, so he immediately knew something was wrong, and he probably was also a little disappointed. The victim's husband then contacted the agency that Tiffany worked for, and she was immediately fired. But that was only the first of her headaches. Tiffany contacted the victim victim's husband to set up a repayment plan. She wanted to sign a loan agreement that would mandate her to pay $1,000 monthly. She might have done this because she was in nursing school and wanted to avoid criminal charges. Unfortunately for her, the police weren't having any of that. They went to the victim's house and waited for Tiffany to show up. When the nursing scammer arrived with $1,500 in cash and a loan repayment agreement, she was ambushed by the police, who took her into custody. With all those cosmetic surgeries, there's probably a couple online careers you'll be able to fall back on, Tiffany. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you'd rather have: free In-N-Out for life or free Shake Shack for life.